They pointed fingers and laughed at the ugly baby. But what happened next left everyone speechless. This is the story of a little boy who proved that true beauty can't be measured by looks alone. Veronika Semchenko sat nervously in the sterile exam room, her hands resting protectively over her swollen belly. At 20 weeks pregnant, she had come in for what she thought would be a routine checkup. Instead, the atmosphere had grown tense as her doctor returned with a grim expression, clutching a folder of test results. "Mrs. Semchenko," the doctor began, his voice careful and measured, "I'm afraid we've discovered something concerning. Our scan indicates that your baby has a high likelihood of inheriting a serious genetic disease." Veronika's world turned upside down. She tried to make sense of what the doctor was saying. He continued, his tone growing more clinical. "It's not lethal, but it will result in a baby that won't look like his peers. Given the severity of this condition, we advise you to consider terminating the pregnancy. It's a difficult decision, but it may be the most compassionate choice for both you and the child. You don't want to be the mother of an ugly baby." At that moment, Veronika's world shattered. Just minutes ago, she had been excitedly anticipating seeing her second child on the screen. Now she was being told her unborn son was too ugly to live. But as tears streamed down her face, she felt a fierce determination rising within her. This was her baby, and she would fight for him, no matter what he looked like. As weeks passed, the situation only got worse. Every doctor's visit brought new horrors. The list of predicted problems seemed endless, developmental delays and even more. Doctors didn't just suggest termination anymore. They pressured Veronika and her husband Jevgeny relentlessly. "This child will destroy your lives," one doctor warned. "Think of your daughter. How will she feel having a monster for a brother?" But Veronika and Jevgeny stood firm. They already had a beautiful daughter, and now they would have a son, no matter what he looked like. They planned to name the baby Erofey, meaning sanctified by God. It was as if they knew something the doctors didn't. As Veronika's due date approached, the anxiety and anticipation grew. The couple prepared themselves for every possibility, steeling their hearts against the barrage of negativity they had endured throughout the pregnancy. When labor finally began, Veronika was admitted to the hospital, her face a mixture of determination and fear. The delivery was long and arduous. Veronika's labor lasted hours, each contraction bringing them closer to the moment of truth. Jevgeny held his wife's hand tightly, whispering words of encouragement and love. The medical staff seemed tense, their expressions guarded as they monitored the baby's vital signs. With one last powerful contraction, Erofey entered the world. The moment was surreal. Nurses exchanged worried glances. Nobody congratulated the parents. But when Veronika held her baby for the first time, she didn't see an ugly child. She saw perfection. Yes, Erofey was born with Down syndrome. Yes, he had a heart defect so serious he needed surgery at just 6 weeks old. The operation was terrifying. Such a tiny baby. Such a big surgery. For a week, his parents could only watch him through the glass of the intensive care unit, praying their little warrior would pull through. And pull through he did. But the real battle was just beginning. The first time Veronika took Erofey to the playground, it was like a scene from a nightmare. Other mothers grabbed their children and hurried away. "Don't look at that baby," they'd whisper, loud enough for Veronika to hear. "He's different." But Erofey had a secret weapon, his smile. When he smiled, his whole face beamed with joy and his eyes sparkled like stars. And the amazing thing was, no matter how mean people were, Erofey just kept smiling. His big sister, who was worried at first about having a different brother, became his fiercest protector. When a kid at the playground once pointed at Erofey and laughed, she stood up tall and declared, "My brother isn't ugly. He has the most beautiful heart in the whole world." Despite what the doctors predicted, Erofey began to thrive. By his first birthday, he was sitting up by himself, learning to crawl, and even taking wobbly steps while holding onto furniture. He knew his name and would turn his head when called. And boy, did he love his big sister. Whenever she entered the room, his face lit up. The Semchenko's apartment, once filled with worry and tears, became the happiest place in their building. Neighbors who used to avoid them now made up excuses to visit. One day, during one of Erofey's routine checkups, Veronika noticed a young woman sitting alone in the corner of the waiting room, sobbing quietly. Something about the woman's despair struck a chord with Veronika, reminding her of her own struggles not so long ago. Gently, she approached the woman, Erofey cradled in her arms. "Is everything all right?" she asked softly, sitting down next to the distraught woman. The woman looked up, her eyes red and puffy. "I just found out my baby will have Down syndrome," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The doctors are suggesting I should terminate the pregnancy." Veronika's heart ached with empathy. "I've been where you are," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "A year ago, I sat in a room just like this one, terrified and overwhelmed. The woman's eyes widened in surprise. "You did?" Nodding, Veronika continued. "The doctors told me my baby would have Down syndrome too. They said he would destroy our lives, that he'd be a burden." She paused, a small smile playing on her lips. "But God came through. They didn't know about the joy my son would bring or how he'd teach us to see the world differently." She looked down at Erofey, who was contentedly playing with a small toy. "Would you like to meet him?" The woman nodded hesitantly. Without a word, Veronika gently placed Erofey in her arms. The moment was like something from a movie. Erofey looked up at the sad mom and gave her his biggest, brightest smile. The woman's tears stopped immediately, replaced by a look of wonder. "He's beautiful," she whispered, her fingers gently tracing Erofey's cheek. "Yes, he is," Veronika agreed. "And he's also smart, loving, and so strong. Every day he surprises us with what he can do." The woman looked from Erofey to her own belly, her hand resting protectively over it. "If my baby is half as wonderful as yours," she said, her voice filled with newfound determination, "I'll be the luckiest mom in the world." Veronika reached out and squeezed the woman's hand. "You already are," she said warmly, "because you're giving your child a chance at life, just like we did for Erofey." That's when Veronika had an idea. She started sharing her son's story online. At first, some people were still mean. They left nasty comments about how he looked. But as Veronika posted more pictures and videos of Erofey playing, laughing, and spreading joy, something amazing happened. The mean comments got fewer and fewer, replaced by messages of love and support. When Erofey turned 1, Veronika wrote a letter and posted it online. She wrote about the doctors who had called her baby a monster, about the people who had laughed and pointed. But mostly she wrote about love. She wrote about how Erofey had changed their lives for the better. "He has what we lack," she wrote, "a very kind inner strength. A whole world is present in his smile. There is a deep inner strength in his whole being. He is special, and we are so proud to have him as our son." The letter went viral. Suddenly, thousands of people were sharing Erofey's story. The boy who was once called ugly became an inspiration to people all over Russia, and even in other countries. Families who were scared about having babies with Down syndrome reached out to Veronika for advice. Some of the doctors who had told her to give up on Erofey even apologized. Today, Erofey continues to grow and amaze everyone around him. The playground that was once a scary place is now his favorite spot. The same kids who used to run away now fight over who gets to play with him first. The neighbors who once whispered mean things now say they're blessed to know him. Remember those people who laughed at him for being ugly? Many have become Erofey's biggest fans. They learned an important lesson. That real beauty isn't about how someone looks on the outside. It's about the love they carry in their heart. Veronika and Jevgeny, who were told their lives would be ruined by this baby, now say their lives were made perfect by him. They've discovered a kind of love they never knew existed. Their family isn't ruined, it's stronger and more beautiful than ever. As for Erofey, he keeps on smiling, keeps on spreading joy, keeps on proving that sometimes the most precious gifts come in unexpected packages. He reminds us all that every person, no matter how different they might look, has something beautiful to offer the world. What do you think about Erofey's story? Have you ever judged someone too quickly based on how they looked? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing stories.